Recovery on Air, the official podcast of Crossroads Addiction Rehabilitation. Candid discussion about addiction and recovery with the people who have lived it, along with input from experts on the journey from struggle to triumph. Laugh, cry, and be inspired. And now, your host for Recovery on Air, Kristen Day.
Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Recovery on Air, where we talk about the good, the bad, the miracles. Today, I am so excited for this guest. You are such an inspiration to me and just everything that you do in the community. So, Lee, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, CEO of Scottsdale Recovery Center. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
It is.
Like I said before, I just have natural conversations. I don't want to do scripted or anything. I did a couple questions for you, but I want to talk about like your addiction and what that was like growing up.
Mm-hmm. I think for me and my evolution into recovery obviously started from an early age, having so many underlying issues and things that contributed to my self-destructive behavior. So I've gone through everything a human being can go through, everything from sexual abuse, homicide, suicide, poverty, incarceration, homelessness. I mean, the full gamut of things that an individual can experience at a young age is what kind of led me to recovery. But the initial stages of my descent into addiction were, I think it's commonplace with all of the trauma and everything that I experienced. So by the age of 13 was when I had my first drink. And when I had that first drink, it was crazy because I think naturally in any human experience, if you have a bad outcome, you would stop.
Right.
And the very first time I touched alcohol, I ended up in jail. And back in a tribal facility, there is no distinction between adults and minors. So you're incarcerated with adult males. And so I'm a 13-year-old kid surrounded by fully grown adult males in that facility.
And you grew up on the res?
Yeah, I grew up on the Hopi reservation, back and forth between Flagstaff and the Hopi tribe.
Gotcha.
And so a lot of the things that I had seen growing up just kind of created the foundation for the self-destructive behavior that I started to partake in when I was 13 years old. And prior to that, I was a good kid. I was very obedient. I was a good student. And I always aspired to do something with my life. And after a while, the harder I tried, I just kept looking at the environmental influence, the social dynamics, and everything that came along with it. And it just seemed like I was fighting an uphill battle. And by the time I turned 13, I just kind of gave up.
Yeah.
I just, I had that first experience with alcohol, and then that just went on to, methamphetamine, cocaine, the whole nine.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, all the great stuff. But,
was mom and dad addicts? Did they?
My father was an alcoholic and my mother was a normie. But I think there was a lot of things that just generationally led to the behaviors that I would kind of look at as, there's this common saying that I think parents during that time would say I did the best that I could with what I had.
Right.
But I also am of the mind that you could have done better, and my mother was in a domestic violence relationship. There was alcoholism. She bared the responsibility of raising all of us boys. And
how many were there?
Well, in the household there was 3, but in total, I include all of my other brothers, which is a total of 8 that we lost to addiction, but a total of 10, and then 1 sister.
My God.
But growing up in that environment, I always think there was a lot you could have done. You could have left. You could have not enabled. You could have, But again, I look at the dynamics culturally to where when you get married traditionally, you don't leave.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the components I think that led to her staying in that relationship long term. But it had profound impacts on myself and my siblings to where we adopted the behavior and the mannerisms and the mentality that kind of led to dysfunctional relationships and all the other things that come along with it. So father was pretty vacant, not really available. He might be there physically, but he wasn't there emotionally, financially. It was just the majority of that burden fell on my mother. So she worked. My mother is a beast. I love my mom. She worked a full-time job at DES during the day. She worked as an overnight janitor at one of the local high schools, and then she worked at the crisis nursery on weekends just to make ends meet, to take care of all of us. And she refused to get on any kind of benefits or anything like that. So she navigated that. But that's also what kind of led to me being in the care of people that ultimately we shouldn't have trusted,
Right.
and then led to sexual abuse and all kinds of other stuff. But I think during that time, I just look back at that as the foundation of my descent, and how I kind of just went into this space that I really didn't see, an out. I didn't really realize that recovery was a thing for Native people, because I never met one before. I didn't
Right.
know that they existed.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of like how the start of my addictions came
So
about.
13, you end up in jail, and obviously you start getting records and all that good stuff. Did you graduate school and everything?
I did, surprisingly.
Wow.
I think I graduated. Well, I graduated midterm, because by that point I was already going to be a father. My oldest son, Isaiah,
Okay.
my girlfriend at the time, his mother, she was pregnant, and so I had to finish schooling a little bit earlier. So I graduated in December. And I remember I was working at the facility where they were having my graduation, but I didn't get to walk because I was working that day. And so I remember just watching everybody graduate and everybody outside, hugging, taking pictures. And I remember just watching them and wishing that the outcome of my life would be different.
Would be different.
Yeah. And so, again, I wouldn't.
How
change
old were
anything.
you?
18.
Okay.
So I was
Teen dad.
Yeah.
And absolutely.
And the relationship that I have with my son at the time, it was in the midst of addiction. I sold dope from the time I was 13 to 23. And so I got to be like a stay-at-home dad,
Yeah.
and still make money. But our relationship for the first 2 years was solid. It was just me and him.
Yeah.
And so to be able to have that relationship with my son at that time was amazing. But at year 2, his mom decided that she was going to get into recovery herself. And she had a brief period of sobriety, and she came to pick him up, and she took him back to California. And I was just in this place to where if I could really change how that looked, it wasn't me necessarily giving him to her, with intent. It was more like, I'm choosing drugs and alcohol over you or over him, because I didn't fight for him at all.
Right.
It was just like, she came, she showed up, I'm doing well. And it was like, finally, take him. I want to get high. I want to get drunk. I want to, I don't want any of this responsibility.
Right.
And so that's really how that started. And then the guilt and the shame and all of the things that came along with it just furthered my addiction even more.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that. Like I can honestly say with my head high today is that I chose men and drugs over my kids, you know. I always filling that void. So I feel you there. So you would say that your addiction obviously progressed worse and worse and worse. And then what happened?
My addiction, I was in California at this time, and my addiction ultimately led me to homelessness. So the way it happened was kind of, it was unorthodox in a sense, because I went out, I got drunk one night, and I had already relinquished the responsibility of having a driver's license. So I had a car, but I couldn't drive.
Yeah.
And so I was out at a bar. I only remember walking out of the bar, and I was waiting for the little white dude to tell me I could cross the street. And then next thing you know, I'm being woken up by fire and paramedics, and they're saying, hey, you can't be laying in the middle of the street like this. And I was like, in the middle of the street? And sure enough, my hands were right next to the double yellow lines in the middle of the street. And they asked me, are you hit? Did you get hit? Are you hurt? And I was like, I don't know. I had to do a self-evaluation real quick to see. And then they had me get into the ambulance, and they said they were going to take me home. I was trying to walk home, and they wouldn't let me. And only because, again, I didn't really intend to go home.
Yeah.
And so what they didn't know is we had a little sunroom before you go into the house. So I went in through that door, waved at them, let them know I was safe. And as soon as they drove off, I went back out again. And so the next morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, I had a bottle of Jack Daniels, and I filled up a fountain drink cup with a 40 ounce of OD. And I'm standing at the street corner, and the same paramedics that took me home happened to be at the cross street across from me. And they looked at me, and both of them just shook their head like,
They're like,
I can't believe you're out here again.
Yeah.
And then so later that evening, I did the same thing, but this time I ended up falling into a bunch of oleanders. So I was upside down in a bunch of oleanders, and I was so drunk I couldn't get out. And so I just said, I'm just going to sleep here.
Yeah.
So then I woke up the next morning, because on the other side of the oleanders was sprinklers, and there was a park on the other side of them, and they came on and got me wet. And I woke up, and I remember just sitting there, and people just walked past me without any kind of regard. Nobody checked on me or anything. And I remember feeling like exactly what I want. I want the world to receive me and to treat me the way that I look at myself.
Yeah.
And I had little to no value in life anymore. And so I remember just sitting there and I thought, this is perfect. Nobody cares. Nobody's asking me if I'm okay. Nobody's telling me they love me. Nobody's telling me I need to get help. It was perfect. It was just pure silence. And during that period, I remember I would sit outside of a liquor store, and I never panhandled. I was fairly successful prior to that, but I depleted all my savings. But I remember people used to flick nickels, pennies, and dimes at me. Ugh. And I would just sit there and I would watch it. And a penny has a life of its own, so it would kind of go in a circle, and I would watch it, and then it would settle. And I would look at that penny, and I would think, me and the penny are equitous. Nobody sees us as valuable. They don't look at our worth. They don't look at anything that we can contribute, in a sense of value or worth, that we were equitous. And so I would just look at that penny and I would think, man, me and you are the same. Nobody will stop to pick us up. Right. No regard for our value or anything whatsoever. And so I kind of adopted that mentality to where I'm just done. Yeah. I'm ready to go.
Shit. Yeah. I am what it is.
Exactly.
And this is how I'm going to live my life.
So at the tail end of my addiction, what I did is I got all the money that I had left, and I checked into a motel for 30 days. I paid in advance. And I went to Ralph's and Vaughn's 2 times in 2 different cabs, and I got as much alcohol as I could load into the trunk of both of those vehicles. And then I went to the dope spot, got as much drugs as I could get with the intent of drinking and using myself to death in that motel. And so I did. I went into that motel, and it was game on. Like, I had zero intent to live. My prayer every night before I would fall out or whatever would happen, I would just say, please, God, just take me. I don't want to hurt no more. And then when I would wake up the next morning, I'd be pissed off. Yeah, because I'm still here. And so I did that every single night. And then all the way up until the 29th night, right? There's no more drugs. There's no more alcohol. I'm ripping open baggies and straws and, just...
Trying to get anything that you can.
And so, how the alcohol settles on the bottom of the bottle after a while. I thought, I'm going to take all these bottles and I'm going to move them to the left side of the room, and I'm going to drink whatever's left in there, knowing full well I spit in them. There was cigarette butts in there. There was roaches from blunts. And I drank them all until I got them all on the other side of the room. And I thought, oh, man, I can make it. I can make it till 6, because at that time it was 2 o'clock in the morning. And so by the time I got done doing that, it was about like 3:30. And I just sat there and, just thinking about where I was at and, what I was going to do. And then I still had like about 2.5 hours to kill or so before 6 o'clock, before the liquor store opened again. And so I decided I was going to get up and go take a shower. And I hadn't touched water for months. I don't even know how long it was. I took a little bath inside the gas station bathroom with the pink powder soap. And like, I hadn't eaten. I remember the last time I ate, I was in Jack in the Box. By this time I was throwing up blood every day.
Oh my gosh.
And so I thought, like, you need to eat something. Yeah. So I went to go get 2 tacos, and I barely got the corner, and I was just like, nah, I can't.
You can't do it.
No, my diet at the time was just purely drugs and alcohol. So my body wasn't even receptive to food at all.
Probably made you sick.
Yeah, it did. Like, I think I'd spit it out. I don't even know if I swallowed it.
Right.
But when at that time, and when I went into the shower, or I was going to take a shower, I walked past the big windows or the big mirrors that they have in motel rooms, and I caught a glimpse of myself briefly. And I hadn't really looked at myself the entire time. And I looked at myself, and then I went back and I looked at I kind of leaned on the counter, and I really looked at myself, and I just started crying. And I was like, how did you get here? What happened to you?
Yeah.
Like I used to be super ambitious. I was very motivated. And all of a sudden I'm just like near death. I was yellowish gray. My eyes were bloodshot yellow. I was throwing up blood every day. And then I just looked at myself, and I don't really know what happened at that point, but I just went to the edge of the bed, and I got on my knee, and I said, please, God, help me. And you know how usually you're real elaborate when it comes to prayer, whether you're incarcerated and you say, please, God, if you get me out of this, I promise.
I'll never do it again.
So I usually make all these promises, but this time I just went and I said those 4 simple words, and I don't know what happened. Like, after that, I just got up. I got into the shower. It lasted like 2 minutes because it was so uncomfortable. The only thing I can compare it to is it felt like I was being sexually abused again. Wow. Like, that's how uncomfortable the water touching my body was, because I hadn't showered or taken a bath for so long that it just felt foreign. And so as I'm going, I probably washed my hands and my face. That's about it. And I got right out. And after that, I went to, it was 6 o'clock by that time, and I cleaned out the room. It took me a couple of trips up and down the stairs to get all the
rid of all the
alcohol.
bottles,
Yeah, because
yeah.
I was just like, I need to clean this place up and just kill time. And then I went to go get a bottle of Jack Daniels because I still knew I needed to like get through the
Did you
day.
get DTs? And,
Yeah, I had heard about DTs, but I had never had them before.
Yeah.
Until then, and when I had DTs, I was like, man, I was hallucinating. I was shaking uncontrollably,
only
like
imagine.
dry heaving because I had nothing left to vomit.
Right.
And so it was just a weird experience. But I went to the liquor store. I got a phone card, and I called everybody whose number I could remember, and nobody picked up. And then finally, I called my Uncle Stan. Shout out to my Uncle Stan, who's the one that really kind of led me to, he just said something that always sticks out in my mind.
Yeah.
And his wife, Nancy, my aunt, was the one that picked up the phone first. And she goes, hold on, I'm going to get your uncle on the line. So he gets on the phone, and I tell him what's going on. And I just remember at the end of our conversation, he said, don't worry, son, we're going to get you home. And I just remember feeling like, you know, it's going to go somewhere. And he just gave me this reassurance just with that simple statement that made me feel like something's gonna happen. Yeah, some degree of comfort. And so I always remember getting on the plane, and it was windy that day. And when I first got to the airport, I remember just, you know, really kind of evaluating whether or not I was even ready to do this. But I got on the plane, and I remember we started to ascend, and when we got so far up, there was turbulence. It was windy. I think it was raining a little bit. It was kind of rainy, and the captain came over the intercom and said, the pilot, he goes, before you reach your destination, you'll experience some turbulence. And I said, no shit.
No shit.
And so I always remember that because the flight was short, it's about like an hour long. And then we landed
From
here.
California to Arizona. Yeah.
And then so we landed here. And then after that, it was just a series of different events that like really established the foundation of my wellness and recovery. But getting there was just like so many different situations and circumstances and things that just over the course of years of self-destructive behavior. But when I finally came into recovery, that's the moment that I realized that life didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And it established a foundation for what I do present day.
Amen.
And it really equipped me in a way that I didn't really foresee. And, you know, credit to people that take the traditional route. They go to school, they go to college, get a degree, get a license.
Right.
And lived experience throughout that entire process wasn't something that really, it wasn't acknowledged as something of value, but now it is. And so I'm at the forefront of that, just kind of reinforcing that thought and idea that we have the opportunity to really give from a personal perspective an opportunity for people to recognize that this can be utilized to your benefit. And one of the things that they always say in AA is that the one thing that you have to change about yourself in recovery is everything. Right? And I don't believe that. Okay. I think a big part of that is like we're ingenious by nature. We're the kind of people that can turn a vase into a bong, a light bulb into a pipe, a toilet paper roll into a steamroller.
Absolutely.
Most people can't think that way. And so if you undo that and you relinquish the ability to have that mindset or that thought, you relinquish a great deal of ingenuity. And so for me, I keep a lot of those components intact, and I teach people how to use them as opposed to like relinquish them.
To the best of their ability, yeah.
And so, you know, those kind of things are just unique in my experience, and I figured out how to manage them appropriately. Even I remember when I first came into recovery, for the first month I couldn't sleep, and they wanted to put me on trazodone. And I thought, I don't want to be on anything. I just want to be completely clean.
Completely, yeah.
And so, but still, habitually, I would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning like clockwork, because in my addiction, my body needed something at that time. And so when I woke up, it kept happening in my recovery. And one night I was so frustrated. I got up. I was standing outside of my sober living on the balcony, and I was just like, I need to get rest. Like, I'm tired. Like, I'm frustrated, whatever. Yeah. And then I started to think. I remember looking around at all of the other apartments, and I thought, I'm the only person awake. And then I started to think to myself, if I start working right now, I'm going to be 4 hours ahead of everybody else. And so that's what I started doing. So when I would wake up, I just got up. I started writing out all the objectives that I had identified throughout the day. And then by the time people woke up, I'm already halfway through that list. And so it really
catapulted. Gets the worm.
It really catapulted an opportunity for me to get to where I am present day.
So did you go to treatment? Okay. Where did you go to treatment?
I went to a facility in the West Valley called Deep Within.
Okay.
And when I got there, I always remember my first interaction with Lee and Cindy Humes. I go to, after detox, I go to their facility, and I'm standing in the lobby, and they ask me, or Lee comes up and he makes introductions, and he says, "What's your name?" And I said, "Lee." And he goes, "My name's Lee too." And then he goes, "So what do you do?" And I said, "I'm a former executive, I used to be a wildland firefighter, United States Marine." I was going through all of these different things that I've done. And then he goes, I said I was a carpenter, and he goes, "You know who was a carpenter? Jesus was a carpenter, and that's what we're going to do for you here. We're going to establish the foundation for the rest of your life." Wow. And I thought, that was pretty slick. I'm going to follow you. Yeah. And so that's what we did. They took me in with nothing. Like I had absolutely nothing to my name. And he taught me everything that I know about this industry. And so he was my mentor. He was my father. He was somebody that I gave I put my life in his hands. And the best way I can describe what he did for me is like he Miyagi'd me into recovery. Like he knew exactly what I needed. He tore me down to bare bones. There was that 3-day period where I wanted to leave that program because
it was too hard.
Yeah, he knew. I don't know how he knew, but he knew exactly who I was before I did. And I remember the things that he was saying to me were just like, I just couldn't. I just kept evaluating. Like I have no money. I have nowhere to go. But I'm leaving. Like I can't. This dude is too much. And then on the 3rd day, I remember I was in the shower, and it was all steamy in there, and I was crying in there for like 45 minutes straight. And then I finally got out, and I wiped off the steam from the mirror, and I looked at myself, and I had to acknowledge like everything that he said is true. Yeah. He just had a way of doing things. And at the end of that shower, I went to him and I said, "I'll follow you. Teach me. Show me everything. I will do whatever you tell me to do."
Like you're surrendering. Yeah.
And that dude taught me so much about myself, so much about life, so much about the industry. His family, Miss Cindy, she took me in unconditional love like I've never felt before. And so, to have them still, unfortunately, we lost Lee during COVID, but his wife, I'm on their board now, so I get to make some decisions to support the program. His wife, my mother, she's also very, we're still very much committed to one another. Yeah. So I'll see her on Wednesday next week.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, that whole experience led me to a whole bunch of opportunities, but I think it just didn't start out that way in an ideal fashion.
So when you got into sobriety, did you get it right away? Did you get it that one time or did you relapse?
No, that was the last time, but I had been to treatment probably in total about 11 times.
Okay.
And so for sure, no.
Yeah.
But when I got it, that was it.
Yeah.
And I think I always say this, when people know that you care, they're willing to change.
For sure.
And you got to feel it. You know what I mean? And when they took me in off the street and just gave me unconditional love and respect and support.
Something that you never had.
Yeah. And especially, in all reality, I didn't even really want it. I didn't feel like I was entitled or deserving of it. But even though I felt that way, they still treated me as if I did. Right. And so little by little, I always try and encourage people to recognize that innate quality establishes identity. And at that time, I didn't know who I was. And I was chasing masculinity. If you look at all of the occupational opportunities I had, they were all masculine in nature. And it was because I was trying to learn how to be a man, and I was trying to figure out how to be an adult male. Right. And I didn't really have that much guidance.
For sure.
And so when I finally had that opportunity to refine the process and really understand who I was, innate quality established the foundation. So one of the first things that he asked me is he asked me to tell me who I was, and I had zero idea. I went directly to occupational experience, and and he said, "That's not who you are. That's what you do. Role and function is very different than identity." And so I started looking at that, and at the time, the only thing that I had that I could identify was compassion. I love people. Like I'll do anything to help people.
You'll give your shirt off at that.
Yeah. And so that was the foundation, though. And when you can align innate quality with occupational opportunities, you never work a day in your life. Right. And I think that's the reason why we're so happy in what we do is because the underlying innate quality of what creates who we are is established on care, compassion, love, respect, advocacy, all of the things that make us good at what we do.
Right.
It's the foundational opportunity to recognize that that's who you are. You're naturally built that way.
Yeah.
And that's why even when you come into recovery and they get that glimpse of what they had before, people will say, I missed that part of you. You know what I mean? I got it back.
For sure.
And so it's us finding that again. And so that's kind of how I found myself in this industry, because I had no plans of working in behavioral health.
Yeah.
Not at all. Like it never even occurred to me to do it.
Yeah.
Until I came into recovery and I realized that all of the things that I had gone through are all the things that people encounter in their challenges to recovery. And so I figured out how to overcome them, and now that's what I do. I teach people how to do it.
So how did you get your foot in the door? Where did you start when in behavioral health? Or did you get a job as a CEO right away?
No, not at all. And part of that, the very first experience that I had in behavioral health, I was actually looking for another sober living.
Okay.
And I had to transition out of the program that I was in. And so I went to Native American Connections, and I went into the office and I asked for an application for their sober living. It wasn't technically sober living at the time. It was just a apartment complex where it was abstinence based basically. And so I
went through Native American Connections.
Did you? Okay, cool.
I graduated Guiding Star before they moved over to Patina.
Nice.
Yep.
But I went in for an application and I got one. And keep in mind, I'm wearing a 3-piece suit. It's 115 degrees outside. I'm on foot.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for sober living. And I had applied to McDonald's, Del Taco, Village Inn, IHOP, and somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so I'm on foot, and I'm doing all this stuff, just figuring
sweating
it out.
your ass off.
So then I go in there and I get the application. I walk out, and then I stand there for a minute, and then I thought, I wonder if they have jobs like for people early in recovery. So I went in and I said, I'm sorry, do you guys have any open positions for anyone new to recovery? I'm 6 months clean, and I'm looking to be able to give back. And I didn't realize at the time the guy behind the desk was the HR director.
Wow.
And he was covering the desk because the receptionist had gone out to lunch. And then so he just kind of looks at me weird because I'm like in a 3-piece suit.
Yeah.
So then he says, yeah, sure. So he gives me an application, and he gets on the phone and he calls somebody up, and then he goes, I think you should come over here and meet this guy. And I hear, did you hit a home run? And he goes, I think I hit a grand slam. And so I got interviewed right then in that moment, and then I started the following week. And that's how I got my foot into the industry.
What year was that?
This was in 2005.
Wow.
And so that's how I got my foot into the door with the industry. And then during the orientation, I met Dee Dee Yazzie, the CEO. Mm-hmm. And during the orientation, we're going around meeting all of the staff, and I go into her office and I look at her directly in her face and I say, one day I'm going to take your job. And then I walked out.
Yes.
And then afterwards I got scared because maybe I shouldn't have said that, right?
Maybe I shouldn't have said it.
And then but then it became this thing to where like she told the story about how this young guy comes in and tells me I'm going to take my job.
Manifestation.
Yeah. And then good thing I didn't wait though, because she ended her career there not too long ago. I would have been waiting forever. But it was one of the things that, she created an opportunity for me to really gather so much knowledge and information about the industry, and especially in regard to Native populations. And I would always go. I texted her not too long ago, but I would go back to her for certain things. And I remember one of the last times I went to go see her, I was super proud of what I was doing, and I was doing all kinds of stuff. And I went to her and I said, I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and I wanted validation, and I was looking for her support. And she goes, you know what? You can't be great at anything if you're trying to do everything. And I was like, oh.
You're like, shit.
but then I thought to myself, like, no, it's true. Like, I need to be able to refine and give my entire focus to something. Mm-hmm. And so fast forward to SRC, that's the opportunity that I got. And when I met Michelle Sywick and she gave me the opportunity, it was one of those experiences that I remember looking, and I remember we had a conversation to where we're in my office, and neither one of us would get up to turn on the light, and the sun slowly went down, and we're literally sitting in the dark. And we're just having this conversation. But essentially she was asking me, are you the guy that can get me the detox and residential and outpatient and all this stuff that we hadn't had before? And I was like, yeah, but I had no idea.
You had no idea.
Yeah, but what I did have is I had conviction and confidence, and I knew that
You were going to figure it out.
Yeah, and so that's exactly what we did.
How long have you been with SRC?
I've been there 9 years.
Wow.
And so it's odd because prior to that, NAC was the only place I've stayed more than 2. And after NAC, I only stayed places every 2 years.
And then switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't like staying anywhere for very long. So I would stay 2 years. As soon as that 2-year time period came, I was like, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing else that I want to do here.
What were you doing, like, job-wise for those 2 years? Like BHT or?
I was just constantly maneuvering
Moving
the
around.
industry, like different things. So,
Got you.
and usually it would just continuously be elevated. So I would go from a peer support to a BHT to a case manager to a director,
Gotcha.
something.
Yeah, no,
And then-
absolutely.
So finally, when I got this opportunity, it was something that, I put all of those things together and then figured out how to lead the organization. And it was just a super, me and Scottsdale don't really have anything to do with each other, right?
Right.
We know about each other, but we're
But
not
we don't-
friends,
yes,
right?
absolutely.
And so when I'm more of a state-funded organization kind
You
of
and
guy.
me both.
And so when I got there, it was kind of odd because I remember just telling them like directly, y'all can't handle me.
Yeah.
You've never met
You've
anybody
never
like
met
me. Yeah.
anybody like me.
And so, that part of it was something that I really was very honored to be, to be given the opportunity. I'm a minority individual, an adult male in the process of evolution, trying to figure things out.
For sure.
And to be given this opportunity was something that I'll
like,
always,
holy
I mean,
shit.
because I don't fit the demographic.
Right.
And so for me to be given the opportunity, it was just something that I'll forever be grateful for. But, in reality, I want that to set a precedence, and I always tell people all the time that the foundation I stand upon used to be the ceiling of my predecessors, and I want to continuously elevate that. And so, even when I have conversations with my son, he was just with me at NAU. I was a keynote at a conference on Friday.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, there's times when he'll tell me, like, one day I want to be CEO too. And, there's all of these things that I look at and I think to myself that this kind of experience is, it's not common
Right.
for people like me. And to be able to have this opportunity, I want to make sure that I don't squander it. I want to be able to take this and continuously elevate it and establish that the organization and myself as a person with integrity and compassion and care and respect and
You're a one of a kind.
and that's how I want it to be that way because the one of a kind that I used to apply to was it wasn't uncommon at all. You know what I mean?
There was
one in
always
the
somebody
same. Yeah.
similar to you.
One in the same.
We call them dirt bags, but I'm retired now. But yeah, you are definitely one of a kind.
Cool, thank you.
Yes, you are. And you've got to be proud of yourself. I mean, everything that you've accomplished. So, things that you've accomplished with SRC, and let's talk about that a little bit and what that looks like. I mean, you did the detox, residential, IOP, sober living. What else?
We've acquired so many grants.
many.
Yeah, and for me personally, one of the biggest things that I've always wanted to do was introduce state-funded policy to that organization because prior to that, it was private, commercial, cash pay only.
Right.
And when I first got there, that's one of my motivating factors in going to that organization is because they entertained the idea that we could do that. And so I remember in the very beginning, there was a lot of uncertainty about it because they thought that it would diminish the value of the organization. And this was the previous ownership. They just kind of thought like, well,
They thought if they had state funding with commercial insurance,
yeah,
it
that there would be a conflict.
I get it.
And so at the same time, though, I thought, but what if we elevate it? What if we elevate the standard of care for people on a state-funded policy and they are entitled and just to receive support services that they're entitled to? And so that's exactly what we did. And so when we had those two populations in the very beginning, it was, very distinct. Like certain people had a certain degree of entitlements and the other people were just ecstatic to be there.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the
Because
line,
your houses
though,
are nice, too.
and somewhere along the line, though, they met in the middle, and it came with a lot of grace and humility, understanding, and compassion. And now that's the entire organizational structure. It's
Right.
the infrastructure of it is established on that, and every single component of that organization was built on client feedback. So even when we built the detox, I would go to the clientele and I would ask them, "What did you like about your previous experience at detox? What didn't you like? What would you like to see?" And so everything that you see at SRC is because somebody came to me and said, hey, Lee, I wish that there was someplace I could do my GED. Boom, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
We got the social determinant of health facility license last February.
Yep.
And so, or if they, the community campus, they said, we want a community where we can grow and learn together. And so
You got one of the best alumni programs.
Yeah. And
yeah.
all of those kind of things, it just comes with them consistently being vocal and letting them know your voice is heard. You know, like I'm not somebody, even on Wednesday this week, I have a meeting with a couple of young ladies that came from incarcerations under one of the grants. And when they came, they just had a lot of feedback. They wanted to have a sit down conversation. They're going to come with ideas about how that population can be more welcome and how can we iron out some of the kinks in the communication, because they're coming from a very rigid structure.
Right.
And so they're asking a lot of questions or permission, and they're like, I didn't know that I can just freely go to the restroom without, you know what I mean? So all of these things.
I had to do count.
Yeah. And so we're kind of educating them on that, but also they're contributing to it. So that way they have a voice or some skin in the game to make sure that in the future, as we make those changes, they can say, I helped influence that.
Right. And you guys got the grant for the DOC thing. I don't
ADCR.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much. And they can be housed once they're getting out. They just have to have the DOC number from Arizona.
Yep. And so even with that, like we're very meticulous about how we manage that program. And it's all the way down to the language, to where when they're graduating from a program, they have a habit of saying, well, when I get out, and I'm teaching them, or we're teaching them, that it's you're successfully completing this program and transitioning or whatever. And so we spend a great deal of time with the reentry population. During Thanksgiving, I went over there to teach them how to do a deep fried turkey. And so, I'm spending the day with them. We had a barbecue over there not too long ago, like a couple of weeks ago. And so we're just constantly investing in them to help them recognize that this isn't something that you should look at as like, oh my God, thank you so much. It's an honor to serve you.
Absolutely.
And to be able to receive you and to give you a platform that allows you to flourish and to, again, utilize lived experience. When you have people that come from incarcerations, homelessness, addiction, they're the kind of people that can turn some ramen noodles, a packet of sauce,
something else. Absolutely. Tamales and all that good stuff.
And so you're talking about a very skilled population of people, but they haven't been told that. And I want to be able to pull that out from these individuals so they can be contributing members to society. And so for us, it's not just about re-entry. We're teaching them how to re-engage with every aspect of life, whether it be occupation, education, family, the treatment program. All of these different things are very distinct. So
we're setting them up for success, honestly.
Across the board.
Yeah. And they can do peer support, and now GED, all that good stuff. That's amazing.
Under one umbrella.
Right.
And that has always been the goal. So ideally, I want to get to a place to where every excuse that you come with, I'm going to close up the gap. So that way you have no excuses.
Amen.
We're doing MAT, we're doing trauma-informed care, we're doing peer support, we're doing GED, we're doing all of these different things. So you don't have to go anywhere else. And I love the fact that even when you go to detox, all the way through the entirety of the program, you have the same provider. You have the same psych provider. You have the same medical provider. And so you develop rapport, trust, relationship. And that just continues to establish the foundation of who we are. And it extends beyond the confines of SRC to where they have an expectation that this is how I deserve to be treated.
Right.
This is what a trusting relationship looks like. And they start to create it.
And you're teaching them to use their voice. And that's what I love. And you're one of literally, I don't say this a lot, but you're literally one of my favorite CEOs because you are hands-on so much. I watch you so much, and just everything that you do, literally, you know your clients. You know what I mean? You are in there, going there for Thanksgiving, for real, teaching them how to deep fry a turkey. That's amazing. Those little things mean so much to them. And they'll remember that for the rest of their life. And like I said, in your whole team, absolutely amazing. Shout out Carrie Anderson. She is the reason that I am in behavioral health. She gave me my job at Crossroads.
Really?
First. Yeah. She was the first person to give me a job at Crossroads, even though I got fired. It's okay. They hired me back. But, she's a huge part of my recovery. So but I just love what you guys are doing over there. And I'm just I want to be just like you when I grow up.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
But I want to be just like you. There's certain things that I watch you do, and every environment that you're in, everything that you're touching, whether it's biking or the pageantry stuff or behavioral health or whatever, you're creating this energy and this dynamic that is fairly uncommon. You know what I mean? And so these are the things that I really look at, is that the opportunity to invest in people, it started somewhere. So even when you make reference to Carrie and that initial experience and that investment, it goes someplace.
Yeah.
But it really is dependent upon how much of an investment that you make in people. And so where there's all these reserves and all of these uncertainties about, just life in general,
Right.
we have a responsibility to isolate these experiences, to give them the best of our ability, to give them the best of us consistently. And even, building the leadership team that we have present day, I used to always tell them, like, they deserve 100% of you.
Right.
As soon as you cross that threshold, you belong to them 100%. And so even when I'm meeting with the individual clients and I'm talking to them, they could watch my phone and they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to bother you. And I'm like, right now, you're the most important person in my life. I don't care what's happening outside of this room. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so to invest in people that way, you're going to reap the benefits of it. The return on that investment is going to quantify more than you can possibly imagine. But it's those little calculated risks that you take on people that it pays dividends through time. And even, they always come and they'll, express gratitude. But in reality, I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to serve, because without you, there is no me.
Right.
I have no platform. I have no,
Amen.
job. And so for me, I don't necessarily look at it as to where I'm doing anything for you. You're doing so much for me. You know what I mean? And that part of it is why I love this industry, is because I literally get to watch people get children back, to get relationships back. When they come back and they tell me they got the job, or, just all of these different things. Yeah.
For sure.
And to just live in that experience and sit back and, I'm constantly expressing my gratitude to my creator and just thanking him for the opportunity to take all of that lived experience and do something with it.
Do you still do AA and stuff like that, like going to meetings and stuff to maintain your
Me
sobriety?
personally? No.
Okay.
I created this entirely different thought process. And for me, it's really, people in the industry, they talk about how recovery, it's, circular. It's like it's very, you go through all the, for me though, I really like to think that it's linear. And the reason why I say that is because your objectives don't go anywhere. Right. They stay the same. How you get there is where your feelings dictate that process. And so people are very committed to looking at something and looking at all the barriers that come along with it. So for example, I can watch somebody go outside and see they have a flat tire. They come back in and they're super frustrated. Oh my God, I have a flat tire. What else could go wrong? And I ask, do you have insurance? And they're like, yeah. And then I say, well, just call them and get it fixed. You're going to get it fixed anyway. So the emotional roller coaster that you just got on,
I literally just went through it yesterday. I had a nail and I'm like, I got to take my mom to the doctor. Oh, my son's got to go get shoulder surgery.
But the fact of the matter is, did it get done?
Absolutely.
It did, right?
Yeah.
But we exhaust so much time on emotional response to everything when
I
you
ain't got
just
time to sit around
so
and
when
bullshit.
when it's linear, you look at it, the objective, and be like, regardless of how or what happened, I'm still going to get there.
Right.
And you do. And so for me, I want to refine that process to expedite the healing, because when you get emotionally vested in all of the things that can go wrong, I really attribute this to my success, because when I started learning how to do it, it wasn't something that I just, figured out. It was something that I watched and I tested on myself to see, can I manage my emotions and still get to my objective? And I would watch people go through the emotional responses and just stay stuck in their feelings. And by the time they create some momentum, I'm already done.
I'm 5 steps ahead of you already.
So that's really why I look at recovery the way I do. And a lot of times people are so committed to the emotional response to things that they'll literally say, well, what if your house burns down? And I'm like, maybe it means I need a bigger house. You know what I mean?
God's doing for me what I couldn't do for myself.
What if you get diagnosed with cancer? Then I get on chemo.
Yeah.
There's all of these,
so many
because they're so committed to I just want to justify my emotional response to everything.
Right.
And in reality, I'd rather teach you how to be happy, secure, certain, confident, all of the things that are beneficial to life. But when we get stuck in this kind of hamster wheel of emotion, you just stay in the same spot.
Did you go to therapy and everything like that and do lots of therapy to work through?
Yeah. And then after a while, for me, and I think, then this is just my own personal opinion. Right. Therapy should have an end to it. Okay. I want to be able to look at like I'm coming to therapy for this and this. I don't want to be triggered for the rest of my life. I don't want to keep coming back. Sure. You know what I mean? It's kind of like taking your vehicle to the shop and every time you go, they tell you something else is wrong. Yeah. Like I want to just, is it good to go? Cool. Yeah. I'm off. But, for me, it's just one of them things to where I want people to recognize that the healing and the opportunities are endless. That's why I say I'm not a man. I'm an adult male in the process of evolution. I'm constantly learning. I love that. And so it allows me the latitude to kind of navigate life in every regard. Like, so there's things where I recognize the need to slow down, but it has to be intentional. If I go to the beach right now, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to think, I could be doing this, I could do this. I'm wasting my time. But if it's intentional and I say for the next 3 months, I'm going to get into peace, serenity, and, just I'm going to be calm. I can sit at that beach all day long, but it has to be intentional. It has to be by design because I'm very meticulous about that order of execution as it relates to emotional response to any given situation. So as I'm doing that, I always tell people all the time, like as a CEO, I get paid to be cool. That's it. You know what I mean? You are cool, like for sure. And no matter the situation or the circumstance, I'm going to be cool. I'm going to just figure out how to manage cool it. And collective. Like even during COVID, it was one of those experiences. Nobody had no idea what to do. Yeah. But it was just us kind of like, when that happened in particular, we went into a room and I said, we're not leaving until we figure out how to keep everybody safe. Right. And we left that office probably like about 8:00 at night. Yeah. But that's mission accomplished. Did you guys keep your doors open during COVID? Yep. Yeah. We did. In fact, we didn't just keep them open. We also grew during that entire process. Yeah. That's during that time was when we built Detox. I was going to say, yeah. Mm-hmm. Listen, I'll never forget, and we won't get into it too much, but I was just telling Will on the way up here, I will never forget the conversation that you said to me when I sat in there and I had introduced myself into business development. Mm-hmm. You were like, if you were anybody else, I would have told you to get the fuck out of my office. I will never forget that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I seriously, that conversation sticks with me for the rest of my life, and I appreciate that so much because it really built my foundation into this behavioral health world. And and honestly, I'm really big on relationship and just being transparent and having integrity to the practice. I remember you saying those. And during all the fraud and everything that happened during that time, you have no idea how many people approached me to just get me to work with their program and to kind of be the face of their organization, like partnership. And I'm so glad. Andrea, big shout out to her because she kept me safe that entire time too, because she would vet everybody and be like, I'm not too sure. This place doesn't have a license. They're not on the website. They don't have a website. She is amazing. And so, for me, navigating that entire process, there were times when I just told people, I don't fucking like you and I don't trust you. You know what I mean? Like and people would interpret that as arrogance or like, oh, you think you're I'm trying. My responsibility is to the people that are under our care, and to protect the organization and the owner. I don't give a shit how you feel about it. Right. And so, those kind of things are really important to navigate in the industry because there's so many. I literally thought that I didn't realize that there's so many bad players in this industry. It's ridiculous. And then when I did, it was kind of like, it was a little deterring for me because I was just like, that's like, I didn't get into it for this. I didn't know this was even a part of it. And so, getting to that place to where we've gone through so many different things as an organization, but the greatest accomplishment for me personally, the one that I look at the most, is that we've grown from 20 clients to over 250. We've grown from 20 employees to about 100, and we haven't lost the culture of that organization. Right. And that's how I always kept the pulse on it. Your mission is still your mission. So that for me is one of those things that I've always evaluated to where when it's too big and you can't, like, I don't know the clients by name anymore, that's we got to put a pause on it a little bit. But we've literally gotten to this point and I still know everybody and I still facilitate groups. I still coach and mentor. I still am on the floor chopping it up, very eating lunch. Hands-on. Very hands-on. And I love it. Like, and that's the thing about it too, though, is that I have to, or I choose to, because it allows me to keep a pulse on everything. Right. They're the ones that guide me on what business decisions need to be made on their behalf.
Right.
And so I think it's super important to do that.
I agree. I want to get into your tribe and, the Hopi tribe. I know that you go out there, and what are some of your goals, or what have you done to help your family out there?
Man, my family, having lost 8 brothers to addiction, it feels like I haven't done anything. And to be honest, that the losses that we've had, my brother drew the tribal logo that we have for Restoration, Health, and Healing at SRC, and then he passed away not too long after that. And so the feelings that I have about what I've been able to contribute to my family, it feels next to nothing. But in reality, there are some family members that we've helped and that are doing well.
Right.
But as a community, there's a big piece of it to where I demand and I expect more, and not just from myself, but from the community in general. And when I go out there or when I speak in any tribal community, there's a consensus across the board that the drug addiction, the alcoholism, the domestic violence, all of occupational opportunities, whatever the case may be, that we're functioning from a deficiency. But what are we doing about it?
Right.
And I'm very vocal about this because I'm passionate about it, because obviously it's our people. But they have meetings to have meetings to have meetings to have meetings, and nothing gets accomplished. And so when I built Restoration, Health, and Healing, I built it from an idea and brought it to fruition within a 7-month time period.
Is it on the reservation?
No, it's here locally.
Oh, it's here locally.
Yeah, but
okay.
It's a tribal component where we provide that distinct service. And so I created and established that within a 7-month time period. And I spoke at the 2nd Annual Reentry Summit in Tucson. And I pretty much just threw it out there and I said, I accomplished this in 7 months. What's your excuse?
Right.
They're constantly talking about tribal sovereignty. In a lot of ways, it just becomes a novelty idea, because if we truly enacted tribal sovereignty, there would have already been a treatment facility on tribal land, and the exploitation of American Indian populations would have never happened. And, people will probably give me flack for saying that, but it's true. And so at the same time, right now I'm actually working on bringing a sober living environment to Hopi. And, the opportunities there are just like, there's a whole trajectory to it. There's an option between whether establishing one or creating something that will be self-sustaining over a 2 to 5 year period. To be able to duplicate that in every tribal community within the state of Arizona and beyond is the goal. And so there's all of these things that I'm looking at, that I want to be able to bring to fruition. And a lot of it is really, I want people to take a calculated risk, to be able to take the responsibility in conjunction with the platform that they have and the positions that they hold, to make informed decisions on behalf of the people. And that's one thing that I have a hard time finding in that, is that people are afraid to take risks. People don't want to be responsible, whether it fails or not. And I assure you, throughout the entire course of my career, I've failed a bunch of times.
Absolutely. We all have.
But I really want to be able to encourage and impress upon people, you have that responsibility. You have that role and function for a reason. Use it. It's not something that, if you're in a position to lead or to have a position of authority, use it for its intended purpose, to serve the people. And if you can't do that, give that position to somebody else.
Right.
Let somebody else assume the authority that you don't know what to do with. And, again, I'll probably get some pushback about that.
That's okay.
But fact of the matter is there's truth to it.
Yeah.
And so when we're immobilized and nothing is happening, it impacts our people. And at the same time, these same people are saying we need a treatment facility on tribal land. We need to do something about the addiction. We need to do something about the exploitation. We need to do something about the murdered and missing. And in all of that, truly enacting the sovereignty is going to bring everybody back home. And as much as I would love to bring a tribal or a treatment facility back to Hopi, fact of the matter is the infrastructure doesn't exist. The capacity to fill occupational need doesn't exist. The turnover in that community is pretty significant. And so you're talking about, like, we could build it, but where am I going to find a skilled therapist?
Listen, I've been manifesting this. I don't know if you know, but Cheyenne is my sponsor.
Oh, I love Cheyenne. Cheyenne, I'm a big fan. I got to give a huge shout out to her, too.
I love her. I love her. She's my baby. And just watching her, I told her one day, I said, you and Lee are going to go take over the world over there.
Yeah.
You really are. I promise you. She's like, Kristen, you're crazy. I'm like, no, for real. I've been manifesting this shit for a year already.
Yep.
Almost 2, actually. Because masters, you know, she's counseling
And I
therapy.
love her story. Her story is amazing. And like, but again, that's what I love about it is
2 people like you coming from where you've came from to what you can do, showing those people on the res that it's possible. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are both living proof, but it takes work.
Yep.
The shit ain't gonna be handed to you on a silver platter. I tell them all the time, the glitz and the glam, this shit is not handed to me on a silver platter. You know how many times I have to go out there? I have so many haters. So many haters. It is what it is at this point.
Yeah. But at the
Me
same
and
time,
God know the truth, and that's all that matters.
yeah, and it's so difficult sometimes to manage that and to just have supreme sense of confidence and faith that you're on the right path, because there's so many obstacles and challenges and people that will try and get in your way. But you know, going back to the thing about the tribal component, it's really important for us to be able to enact the influence of tribal councils and tribal leadership, and to get them on board to help recognize that I'm in this position right now. Use me while I'm here.
Right.
I have access to knowledge and information and things that are critically important to our community. And so, you know, and with individuals like Cheyenne and Amber and like all of these different people that are young and they're motivated and ambitious, it's not uncommon though. The people that used to come before us had the same mentality. They wanted to go to school. They wanted to pursue a degree and then come back and serve the people. But when they got to that point, there was no place for them to return to. There was no jobs. And even if there was a job, it doesn't pay what you can get paid here. There was no housing. There's no transportation system. And so it almost, you know, the unintended outcome of that is like, I'm just going to stay in the city. I have occupation. I have housing. I have transportation. I have all of these things that were inhibiting factors to success on tribal land, or at least for my tribe in particular. But I really want to change that, because there's so many people. We're losing so much talent and so much passion, but at the same time, we're losing language, we're losing culture, we're losing traditional practice. And the long-term impact of that is going to be devastating. We're going to lose our land, our way of life, and that it just can't happen.
Yeah, for sure. So how many times do you go back out to the res? A lot?
Yeah, I mean, lately I haven't. I was just out there last week.
Okay.
So I took about a week off, which is super uncommon for me to do, but it was my uncle's wedding. So I went out there. It was a traditional wedding, so I was out there for about a week.
Nice.
And even in between, they're still trying to negotiate some plans about the sober living and stuff. And so, you know, I'm going out there, especially when my son, Vincent, he's like in it. Like he's everything he wants to learn about Hopi.
I love
He's
it.
constantly drawing and dancing and like just all the stuff. And so seeing that, it's giving me this sense of responsibility, obviously, to make sure that he has a connection to it. So that's kind of what's been causing me to go back home a lot more than before. But also, I think I'm getting to a place of maturity to recognize, like, this is an occupation. It's a job. It's cool. I love it. But for my children to be able to have accessibility to who they are and have a sense of cultural identity is worth more than that. And so I'm kind of changing that up a little bit, and I think it's super important to feed it while it's there, because
feel
one
like
day
you're finding balance right now in your life.
Kind of, a little bit.
That's
and
where
usually,
I am.
usually I'm all business. I don't like personal life. You know, like taking time for yourself.
Right. No.
Even in grief and loss, I give grief and loss 24 hours. That's it. I don't have time.
Nope.
Grief for people like us is dangerous.
Yeah.
I only stay there for 24 hours. I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
But you know, all of these kind of things are things that I've learned how to enact and practice and teach myself how to do.
Right.
And so it's always, the focal point has always been the people in relation to the business. But now it's starting to change a little bit to where it's about my children and, you know, my grandchildren and my oldest son, Isaiah, like recapturing that relationship and trying to be, you know, this is something that I'm working towards, just trying to be more present.
For sure.
And, you know, the business will do what it's going to do, with or without me.
I mean, you've done a lot for the business, so it can definitely take a little bit. You can take some time to yourself, you know? But I get it. I get it. This shit's going to run itself one of these days. No, I'm just kidding. AI's taking over now.
I know. It is. I'm so scared for the world.
Listen, I mean, it is what it is. I just got to get my shit together real quick, you know? But I really thank you for coming in and just sharing your story. Like I said, you are a huge inspiration to me. I appreciate you and everything that you do in the community, and I just want to thank you again
Likewise.
for coming
Thank
out
you.
here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And if you are struggling and you need help, you can always reach out thecrossroadsinc.org. We are open Monday through Saturday. We take all access plans, all commercial insurance. Before we end, I just want to plug where they can find you if they need you.
They can find us at www.scottsdalerecovery.com or call 1-888-NO-DRUGS.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to put that in the thing too. So again,
Cool.
I really appreciate you coming out.
Absolutely.
And with that, I'll pass. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Recovery on Air, the official podcast of Crossroads Addiction Rehabilitation, with your host, Kristen Day. Join us next time as we continue our candid discussions about addiction and recovery. Listen 24/7 anytime to this or any of our shows online at starworldwidenetworks.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.